Hey guys, welcome back. Today is going to be part 2 of my May wrap-up. I'm going to go over the last 5 books that I read this month, and I'm just going to jump right in because I have a lot to say about these and I don't want this video to be too long. So the first one that I want to talk about is The Martian Chronicles by Bradbury, and this is a buddy read that I did with Amanda. And basically this is a short story collection where all of the short stories are centered around the same theme. And the theme here is that far off into the future, humans are colonizing Mars. And so this book, well, all of the short stories deal with humans trying to get to Mars and settling there. So this is typical Bradbury. It's a look at humanity, and he kind of adds this ironic sense of humor to everything, and so it just ends up being a really fun but also frustrating read because the theme that I got, or the main theme that I got from this short story collection, was that humans ruin everything no matter where they go. No matter how far off into the future or how long it takes them to get somewhere or how they decide to colonize or settle somewhere, they're just awful people. And yeah, so that was a lot of fun to discuss with Amanda as we were reading all of these short stories. I did want to point out my favorite ones. I kind of marked them here in the table of contents. My favorites were The Earthmen and The Moon Be Still As Bright, The Fire Balloons, and The Long Years. So yes, I really enjoyed this. I gave this 4 stars. I think his are the only short stories that I can honestly say I enjoyed most of them in a collection. I've read other short story collections before, but his stories they just speak to me because they're so weird, and he really gets down to the nitty-gritty of what makes us human. And so yes, I really enjoyed this one. The next one I want to talk about is The Dry by Jane Harper. I don't have the book with me because I checked it out of the library. And this is a detective series. It's the first one in the series, and it's about a man named Aaron Falk who has returned to town after many years, being gone. And he's attending the funeral of his childhood best friend, Luke. And apparently Luke killed his family and then committed suicide. But Luke's parents find this really hard to believe. And so they ask Aaron to investigate or just look at the evidence and see if the evidence might point to something else. So he decides to look into it. Now, Aaron has kind of a turbulent past with the town. Many years back, his childhood friend Ellie, a young girl, was found murdered. When Ellie was found, there was a note in her pocket that said the word Falk. The police immediately looked to Aaron and Luke as the main suspects, and Aaron and Luke kind of get out of it by using each other as their alibis. So the town naturally believes that Aaron was the one that committed the crime and got away with it. So Aaron and his dad have to pretty much flee the town to escape all the town people being like, they were basically harassing them because they felt that Aaron had gotten away with Ellie's murder. So anyway, so when Aaron comes back into town to investigate Luke's, the crime surrounding Luke's family, he's not welcomed. So he figures that he'll just dedicate a few days to the case and then go home, hit the road, because it's just not a good environment for him to be there. But as he starts to dig deeper, he realizes a couple of things about Luke's death and Ellie's. So this was a really fun mystery. I really liked Aaron as a character. He had a lot of flaws, and I really like when detectives have kind of interesting backstories and are just normal people. So I really liked him as a character. I also liked other characters in the story as well. I like that we as the reader investigated right along with Aaron, and that things didn't just come up and were convenient, Aaron does have to kind of figure things out by trial and error, and so we figured things out in that way too, because it wasn't like the mystery was just magically solved because the detective knew something we didn't. It wasn't that kind of mystery, and so I really enjoyed that. I also liked that the author included kind of flashbacks with different characters' point of view. I also thought the pacing was great. I flew through the last third of the book, and I think I read the last, I want to say 70 pages in one sitting because I just needed to know what happened. So I thought that was great too. The only thing that I didn't like was in the end, the author kind of tacks on information about Ellie's murder. and it kind of just felt rushed. It felt like she just wanted to wrap up those loose ends and then kind of continue on with the series. But for me, it didn't really work. I felt like Ellie's murder and the details about her murder could have been a whole different book. But overall, it was a really good mystery, and I'm really impressed that this is her first novel. It's her debut novel, and I think she did great. I want to continue on with the series, but I've already heard that some people were not fans of the second book, so I don't know. I'm hoping that that's not the case in my experience, but we will see. The next book I want to talk about is The Romanov Sisters by Helen Rappaport, and this is another buddy read I did with Bree Hill, and we had a blast reading this book. This is all about the Romanov family, mainly focusing on the four sisters, but through them we kind of see everything about the family and their daily lives, the political climate at the time, all the way up to their last days before they were murdered. So that's what the book is about. This is a very informative and super well-researched book. It's also full of tons of detail. There's a lot of name dropping in this book, a lot of dates, a lot of information that the author has decided to include here. I mean, when I looked at this book and I saw how many pages of notes were in the end, let me just show you guys how many pages of notes are in this book. So all of this are notes. So there's a lot of references in this book. Even though there's a ton of information, it was really readable. I would have probably taken out a little bit of the detail and then added more information after their murders and more about like the political climate after the revolution started. So I wished that I would have gotten that, but that doesn't take away from the book as it is. I think it's still a great book. It's very informative. If you're interested about this family and what happened to them, this is a great resource. I really like that she included a lot of diary excerpts and letters. I really am happy that I read this book because I knew absolutely nothing about this family. And yeah, it was interesting to read about how things developed and how to an extent, it was kind of inevitable what happened to this family. So yes, definitely recommend this one if you're interested in the Romanovs or just Russian history. Okay, the next book that I want to talk about was a 5-star read for me. I listened to the audiobook and I absolutely loved it, and that was Horns by Joe Hill. This book made me a Joe Hill stan. I just love his books. So this is a story about a young man named Ig who one day wakes up with horns coming out of his head. And when he's around other people and they see these horns, they just cannot help but tell him their like deepest, darkest secrets. And so Ig hears a lot of things that he wish he didn't know. And it's like verbal vomit. Like people just can't help but tell them like all the horrible things that they do or think. So yes, he's like wondering what is up with these horns. At first he thinks like maybe he just drank too much the night before, but they're not going away. He realizes that in a way he kind of can influence people and learn things, especially because a year ago his ex-girlfriend Marin was murdered and everybody thought that Ig did it. However, they couldn't charge him with the crime. So he's not very popular in town, but as he interacts with people, he starts learning things about Marin's death and what really happened that night. So like I said, this made me a Joe Hill stan because you can really tell through his books how much time he dedicates to developing his characters, to creating a powerful scene. He loves crafting his stories and thinking of these characters. It's almost like he sits down and he's like, what's the worst possible character I can write about? And how can I make them look and sound and behave real, like a real person? And so it just adds this dimension to his characters where it's like they're super creepy and you can kind of see how someone that you might know of in real life, you can kind of see how they can become one of his characters. Is really freaking amazing and also disturbing. And so that's why I really love his books. They're definitely graphic, violent, and vulgar. Some of the dialogue is kind of hard to read about. They kind of exaggerate a little bit or a little bit over the top, but I can overlook it because they just add so much to the story. And so I just really loved the characters in this book. I also love the pacing of this book and how we're kind of going along with Ig trying to figure out what the horns can do and, you know, what happened with Marin, what happened to their relationship, and, you know, who was really involved. It was kind of like a mystery that slowly unraveled, and I just loved that. I thought the audiobook was excellent. I will leave all of the information about the audiobook down below because I really loved it. It almost like felt like I was listening to a performance, but it's only one narrator. Anyway, he was awesome, and I flew through this audiobook. I think this audiobook was like 13 or 14 hours long, and I listened to it in like 5 days. It was intense. I just had to get to the end, and I had to figure out what happened. I wouldn't say it was like a horror book, but it is very gruesome, and it is, you know, the main villain in this book. Sometimes I seriously felt like an intense hatred for this character. In this book, we kind of get different points of view. So we are in this character's head, and it was just so disturbing to hear him and see how he justified some of his actions. It was like disgusting, but I just couldn't stop listening. So yes, highly recommend it. That's all I'm gonna say because I could gush on and on and on about this book. And the last one that I have here to talk about is Tin Men by Sarah Winman. And this came out recently this year in the United States. I was really excited about this book because a lot of people have been raving about how this is such a slim book, but it has a ton of like beautiful writing and memorable characters, and people have just been raving about this book. So I was really excited to read it because I love short books that pack a punch. However, I had a very different experience with this book. I ended up giving it 3 stars. I don't know what it is. I couldn't really connect with this book, and I've been thinking, you know, what is my problem with this book? And I think I've narrowed it down. So first, let me tell you what it's about. It's about a childhood friendship between 2 boys. One is Michael and one is Ellis. They grow up together, but eventually they also grow apart. And so the book kind of is divided into 2 points of view. The point of view of Ellis, which is kind of in the present, and then the point of view of Michael. So you kind of can get an overview of their relationship. So they start growing apart when Ellis gets married to Annie. And when the book opens, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody because it's a really short book, so I'm not going to tell you too much. But when the book opens, Ellis is walking around and he's going through life and also kind of reliving past memories. And so you're piecing together how he met Annie, his childhood friendship with Michael, etc. And then the book jumps to Michael's point of view in the form of a diary. And somewhere in the middle of those 2 points of view, we learn about Annie and we get to know who she is and all of that. So my main problem with this book was that I could not connect to any of these characters, and that's kind of a problem because this is a character-driven story. There's very little plot. I was more confused by the dynamic of these relationships, and also the writing style kind of kept me at bay because at parts the writing is absolutely beautiful and lyrical, and then in other times I'm like, wait, what did I just read? That was weird. So I have a couple of examples. So this first example is just something that confused me as a reader in terms of the dynamic. So this is Ellis, and we're his point of view, and he says, "Life was not as fun without Michael. Life was not as colorful without him. Life was not life without him." So this is after Michael has left and Ellis is married to Annie. And so I just could not understand how Ellis could be married to what seemingly is the love of his life. She is just like the one for him, right? But at the same time, they're married, they're building a life together, and he's thinking about, you know, how I guess life doesn't matter without Michael. And I guess if that's what the story is about, fine, but I never felt that way towards Michael. I thought that he was just a regular, pretentious guy. Like, there was nothing really that jumped out at me that made me think, oh yes, this is the glue that holds everything together. You know what I mean? So that took me a little bit out of the story because I felt like maybe I'm missing something. You know, you start questioning yourself like, well, you know, apparently this guy's a really big deal, but I just don't see how. And then these other 2 passages that I'm going to share about are just like, I don't know, something about the writing style just didn't connect with me. So this is in Michael's point of view, and he's just, you know, this is supposed to be a diary entry, by the way, which this whole section that's supposed to be a diary does not read like any diary I could even think about writing. So that was just kind of like frustrating because I'm like, what kind of diary, who writes a diary like this? Anyway, so here's one of the passages. "In the chapel, my nose pricks with the fumes of decay, and I quickly leave those moribund stones to their plangent tale. Outside, the world is vital. I take comfort in the ochre-colored building opposite, where the doves cry aloft. Maybe I'm just, not getting it? I don't know. And then there's this other one where I just couldn't, I don't think flowers can do this. I sit outside with a small Callard gas stove with a coffee pot boiling on top. And as the morning lightens, I watch the sunflowers lift up their heads and learn to decipher their whisper. I don't know about you guys, but sunflowers don't whisper. So I guess she was kind of trying to play with writing and wordplay and have the prose be like vivid and whatnot. But those just took me out of the story because number one, that's not how people write in diaries. And number two, it's just like, if that's how Michael's supposed to be thinking all the time, then I find him kind of insufferable. Maybe it's just not the writing style for me personally. If any of those passages work for you, then I think this is the book for you. But for me, it just didn't work. I felt like she really wanted me to care, and she really wanted these characters to have depth, and she was just telling me to think that way. But I couldn't really have that experience based off of what she wrote. I hope that makes sense. So those were the last 5 books that I read this month. Let me know down in the comments if you've read any of these or if you read any great books this month. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in my next video.